winter. And so everybody was waiting until the computing power was available and enough data was accessible, and the algorithm that could do that.
And when did that happen?
Exactly.
Fast forward.
Fast forward, I'm sorry.
No, we have a lot of topics to cover, Mariana.
Thank you. So that happened in 2012.
Okay.
2012, when the multi-layer neural networks was brought online with deep learning. And so, and the computing capacity and data was available, and the AI took off. And what happened then in 2015 was something that is extremely important for those of us who are interested in ethics and morals, because a new paper came out, and some of the old guys were involved in there too, where based on behavioral psychology. And mind you, I have a PhD in psychology as well, and behavioral psychology was developed 100 years ago. So where Skinner and others compared us with pigeons and Pavlov. So the new algorithm was based on behavioral psychology that is 100 years old, never mind that we have evolved as human beings since then. And this is a problem in when it comes to ethics.
We'll talk about ethics later. So thanks for reminding us how long AI has been around, and that now we're in a renaissance, but the context is important. I also want to point out, that we will have a Club of Rome fireside chat in reversed roles in May, where Mariana and I will talk about consciousness awareness and inner and outer transformation mindset shifts for systems change. And of course, AI can play a supporting role in that shift, which is necessary in order to participate with agency in the transformation that has started a few years ago. So for those of you who are interested in that, please tune in that. Today,
join us in Hawaii. Charlie is going to be in Hawaii, and who knows, I might fly there to have another fireside chat.
Yeah, it's I think 6 a.m. and afterwards we go surfing.
There you go.
So today we're going to talk about a few topics. First, we're going to define a little bit AI, and then we do need to place AI in the geopolitical and macroeconomic context because of what's going on right now. And then we talk about ethical and philosophical questions, and then positive and negative implications of AI, and finish out with protections and a vision. And this all in 35 minutes, so hang on. And we'll leave 20 minutes at least for questions from the Club of Rome online audience. And so please articulate your questions, put them in the chat. I will review the chat and then we'll summarize or not, and so that we can get to your questions as well. So, so with this, Mariana, let's ground ourselves in a couple of definitions, and if you wish, make them so that people who don't have an AI background, that they understand the difference between narrow intelligence, general intelligence, and super intelligence as it pertains to AI in 3 minutes.
Oh, that's a lot, actually. Well, what we have today is narrow artificial intelligence, which, it includes, what you experience when you go online. It's very simple. It includes self-driving cars and others. So this is narrow AI, or what we call good old AI. And so the next level is when it's called artificial general intelligence, when the AI will be able to complete complex goals. You tell them, well, don't just ask me how do you get from Innsbruck to Hawaii, but book me actually the flight, and to book a taxi, and schedule it all, and so on. So that's what it's actually proposed to be defined as artificial general intelligence. So please do not confuse that with generative AI. Generative AI is what the blabbermouth of ChatGPT does with you. It generates language. That's generative AI compared to artificial general intelligence. Now, the next level will be the artificial superintelligence, when the brain merges with artificial intelligence. So you become a polymath. You have all the knowledge that is available online, cognitive knowledge, mind you, cognitive, not emotional, not spiritual intelligence, but cognitive intelligence. It merges and it's available with your brain. And well, we all become Einsteins, hopefully.
We talk about that and the implications and the what that could mean during our conversation. Now, the current AI that most of us are using is based on large language models. What are LLMs?
Well, LLMs are those systems that have been developed using the algorithms that I mentioned before. And it's basically taking all the available data that is available online and uses language to respond to a language question. And of course, LLMs have been now expanded. Our son uses it to make movies and others, so you can expand them to create stuff. But this is basically what it is, and it requires a lot of energy. And so 95% of 100 million, for instance, that is required to train a ChatGPT, the next version, 95% of that goes into the energy. So that is a big problem with that. Problem, but LLMs is large language models, which is limited to cognitive language, basically, blubbermouths.
Now there are small language models too coming online right now. And are they successful? Can they compete? Are they as good? Do they use less energy? Maybe?
Absolutely, and this is our hope. So DeepSeek, who has heard of DeepSeek? DeepSeek is what has made it into the public domain these days, but who has heard of Liquid AI? Liquid AI, right. So there are other small models that are like 10% of the price that large language models charge. And what makes them important is they didn't just take all the data available online and threw them at the algorithm. They went and they were smarter because they didn't have that much money, and they have changed the algorithm, the inference machine, not just using the data and all the computing power that you get. They changed the algorithm, the machine inside. So that's actually very smart. And that's where we are going. Liquid AI, for instance, is California-based. Joscha Bach, whoever, if you haven't heard of Joscha Bach, he's a brilliant guy. He works there. This is the future because we will all plant, in order to become a polymath, we all want to have the knowledge at our fingertips, will be available on your devices locally and use much less energy.
So the future is both large and small models because they're used for different things, or?
Yes, so it's we live in a free world. Hopefully we'll have this and that and the other, and they all transform. But the future is not LLMs, and the future is not small language models. The future is also includes LQMs, which is a new term, if you haven't heard of, large quantitative models. This is extremely important because large language models hallucinate. Between 19 and 41% of the data, of the responses that you receive from them is a hallucination. It's just made up. And of course, when it comes to where we can apply all this intelligence to domains that are extremely important, for us in developing new drugs, developing new systems, and so on, we need to be able to apply mathematical equations to the GPUs. GPU being the processors, and so these are called large quantitative models, and we can talk about those later.
Great, and we all have hallucinations, and so maybe that's compatible.
Of course, because there are people who have built those systems.
Here we go. Now, you mentioned free world. So let's talk about the macroeconomic and the geopolitical implications as they pertain to AI. We stay away from all the other topics tonight, at least. And so I'm bicontinental in the last 20 years, traveling back and forth between California and Europe.
And Hawaii.
And Hawaii, well, which, the U.S. considers part of U.S.
Of California.
The Hawaiians, have a different opinion on that one. But be that as it may, Europe has fallen way behind in AI. And so let's talk about Europe, US first, and then bring China in. And is Europe so far behind that they cannot catch up anymore? Or how can they compete in the context of the enormous amount of money being spent in China and the US on the current AI craze?
Well, China is not spending that much money on AI anymore because they just don't get the GPUs that I talked about, to throw the data at and just waste the energy on it. I'm sorry, I'm being facetious here, but so what they're using their human intelligence to get better, and this is the result of the DeepSeek.
But let's talk about
and
US,
that's exactly
Europe
what's actually
first,
happening.
And then China, maybe, yeah.
Well, but I'm using China as an example to what's actually happening in Europe because we're in a similar position.
Okay.
There isn't that much capital that people are willing to waste on those AIs. And those who did waste it, Aleph Alpha, for example, they have lost. And so there are there's a few other larger LLM building companies in France that are currently receiving much more money from. I just attended the AI Action Summit in Paris a couple of weeks ago, and so there is a lot of capital being allocated and resources allocated to this because we have understood the importance of AI, not necessarily from the large language models perspective, but from the security perspective, from the communications perspective, from the integration of quantum technology with artificial intelligence to address the security issues.
And in these topics, Europe can lead?
In these topics, Europe can lead, of course, and will lead. And I have decided to step up and join On-Site Ventures to help lead and get a piece of the pie that is currently being allocated by our European friends, because the amount of knowledge, the amount of research, the data centers that are being built in France, for instance, right now, they have enough nuclear energy to do that. But also the necessity of investing into fusion reactors to come up with freer energy and that is less costly and doesn't do environmental damage is extremely important. And that's actually happening.
So let me just comment to the people who are asking questions. We'll get to that, including ethics. So that's right after this conversation. So and then I take a look at the specific questions. Now.
So to summarize, is actually the integration.
So
we're being
Europe
smart
has a chance to be leapfrogging the US on that particular.
I don't know about leapfrogging. I think Europe is finding its own way with its own solutions based on the amazing innovation and creativity and the amount of knowledge that is available in our research centers. I mean, we have a whole host of extraordinary smart people, and
what
I see
about,
that because
regulations.
Well, regulations, regulations are actually worse in Europe at times than in the United States, and we see what's actually happening in the United States because they're sick and tired of regulations. So something's got to give in Europe too, in Germany, and because we missed it. We missed the digitalization.
So in the US, these regulations are being dismantled by the current administration.
That's the goal. Whether they will succeed, we'll see. But
well, with the oligarch number one, I'm sure it happens short term. But in Europe, it's increasing the regulations. Isn't that a strategic issue for Europe?
It is a strategic issue, but if you read the Draghi paper, who has read the Draghi paper? I think it's extremely important. It's been recognized that there is a stranglehold in terms of regulations, and they're backpedaling. And I'm hoping, as an investor and as a serial entrepreneur, that we're going to succeed there, because people are ready. all these young entrepreneurs want to build their companies, investors want to invest, but if it takes 3 weeks to get an appointment with a notary in order to sign, to invest, it's just something that is not acceptable.
So if Europe, if I can paraphrase what I heard you say, then I would summarize that Europe has a fair chance of not leapfrogging, but at least developing AI in a way that doesn't depend on the current wave of AI, which they can do, and but only if they actually work on the regulatory side, that it's not a stranglehold.
Yes, and of course, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, what's currently happening, edge AI is, for instance, a keyword in this, what kind of solutions we need to build. Edge AI on device AI, but the integration also between quantum physics and quantum algorithms with artificial intelligence, coming back to the LQM conversation that we had before.
Yeah. We're just at the beginning, right?
We are at the beginning, yes.
So one more quick comment, and then we go to the ethics questions, is open source AI versus closed AI. And in the US, which is being financed, I think 67% of the venture capital money going into AI is going into the US. And out of that, about 2/3 are going into closed and 1/3 into open source AI. Are there any implications of that with respect to knowledge, with respect to applications, with respect to, are both needed? And if so, why?
Of course there are implications, and you know that, yeah.
I know, but ask you.
I should ask you back. Of course there are implications. Well, I think this what's actually happening has to do with the fact that, this is how an entire field evolved. And of course, it depends, whether we're talking about OpenAI being the company, that was started as a not-for-profit, right? Yeah. And now wants to shift toward for profit in order to close its systems and close the algorithms. And of course, there are parallel movements.
DeepSeek is open source.
Yes, I know, which is exactly what needs to happen. Why? For transparency reasons. We need AI to be transparent. We need for people to be able to see what is actually happening within the algorithms and also with the data. And that's why transparency is important. And also what happens to privacy? What happens, we all have our computers here, our phones, everyone. Siri is listening all the time. What happens to the data that these systems collect? And it has to do with the usage. That they listen in is one thing, and we can benefit from it. I use Siri all the time. But what happens to that data? How is it utilized? And that should not be utilized without our consent. Because what's happening, and many people ask me, oh, we should get Mariana onto WhatsApp. And I'm not on WhatsApp. Why? Because I know what they do with the system. I know what they do with AI. And I don't want to be part of, supporting their AI development without my consent. Because if you get a product, if you don't pay for the product, you are the product. It's extremely important. So, and that's the result of it. So we need to do something about it. And I am actually also at the AI Action Summit. There was the representative from the EU Commission who talked about the ethics in AI. And I'm actually proud of Europe, the direction that we're going. Albeit, please don't put a stranglehold on the development.
So you mentioned ethical, and it's the big elephant in the room. So let's talk about ethics and AI. What are some of the more important ethical questions that you think about when you think about the opportunities and challenges of AI? Just the questions that we need to ask. So a couple of them. What come to mind?
Well, I think before we talk about ethics, we need to go into the definition of intelligence and a better understanding as to what is actually intelligence. And those of us who have studied intelligence, they know one of the major cognitive scientists at Harvard, Howard Gardner, he came up with, it's between 9 or 12, I think most recently he came up with 12 different types of intelligence. And when we talk about artificial intelligence, we talk about cognitive intelligence. cognition. So blah, 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 knowledge, it's extremely important. It's not just blah, 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 but it's cognition as a line of human development. You learn facts when you go to school. This is our school system is being built on cognitive, teaching people cognitive intelligence. And when it comes to emotional intelligence or ethical intelligence, very often the schools leave that to the family, to the tribe to take care of, emotional. So you have to be perfect, and not show any emotions when you're in a school setting. It's expected. And ethics and morals is yet another line of intelligence that evolves alongside the others, the cognitive, the emotional. And so we evolve emotionally. For instance, everyone has seen a 2-year-old throw themselves on the floor in order to have their will be implemented. And then they grow to the next level when they're, 16-year-old, where they care about not about themselves, but also about the tribe. They want to be part of a group. And then later on, if we're lucky, we evolve to have an understanding that there is the world that, beyond our country, beyond our continent, that we need to take care of, like the environmental understanding and so on. And so ethics and morals evolve along the same lines. And one of the biggest issues when it comes to confrontations between requesting people to comply to our values has to do with the different understanding. We come from a world-centric view because we have everything. When you move up the Maslow pyramid, you have to eat, you have a house, you have a roof over your head, and you expect everyone else to comply because you come from this well-fed, well-understood, well-developed human understanding. And we are surprised when other people do not share that understanding, that ethic and moral. And so I think when it comes to imposing our ethics and morals onto other countries, other people, other continents, we need to understand where the other people are coming from.
So that's at the heart, I think, of one of the most difficult questions to influence and to answer, because it's just the very fact that today AI is trained by the internet mostly and synthetic data sets by 60% now, which is a complete reflection of the biases of the global north and the white people, white men in particular.
The bros, so Silicon Valley bros.
And so you're mentioning, of course, that the ethical mandate is that we change that, because we cannot possibly impose our ethical context on the rest of the world. So, but right now, like I said in the private introduction, the people who are in charge of the AI in the big companies, they don't take this responsibility of creating data sets that actually matter, that reflect indigenous wisdom, that reflect the global south, that reflect people that are not participating in the economy right now. So the standard is clear that we don't have the authority to do that, and yet, the AI machinery is augmenting that in a way that's very, very, very scary to me. So how do you reconcile these two things, namely that we cannot possibly impose our ethical frameworks on the world, and that's exactly what's happening by the current AI?
Yes, it's a generalization, absolutely, and that's of course the big, $2 million question that we need to answer. So what I can participate or contribute to this answering this question is by giving examples of artificial intelligence systems that have actually implemented that, and that can be used to reconcile the polarization. Because what we see right now in you mentioned the geopolitical polarization in which we're finding ourselves right now. But there are artificial intelligence systems like CrowdSmart AI. I wrote that in the report to the Club of Rome that you kindly endorsed, the integral investing, that has been developed to really provide the reconciliation between groups that haven't been able to talk to one another because of the biases represented in the conversation. And so what's happening, people turn to each other's backs instead of joining the conversation, unless you have a system. One is crowd smart AI. If you don't know it, several people in the Club of Rome already know it. What's happening? What kind of system is this? So it's based on the very famous book. I don't know if you've heard The Wisdom of Crowds. So what's actually happening, just a story. I know we don't have time, but we have to take time. So when you have a horse and you go to a marketplace and you want to sell it, right? People, the first person who gives a bet for that horse influences the opinion of all the others, right? And this is happening in every in every group setting that you see. If you take that horse to each individual expert and have him give appraised, they will all tell you, wow, this is so much worth. The other guy go to, and in total, they're very close to one another. But they gave you their opinion asynchronously and anonymously. Only you, nobody else listened. So based on that knowledge, this AI has been developed by my first boss, my IntelliCorp founder, Tom Kaler, who's an extraordinary guy. I worked for him in 1986 for a couple of years. And this is a system that has already been applied and is currently applied even within NATO, which is extremely important. So, and I have actually introduced the system in many other political settings where people would not talk to one another, but now that they talk to the system, give their opinion into the system, it's asynchronous and anonymous, so nobody else knows who gave that opinion. And it's nobody sees at what time, whenever. But the AI actually distills the opinions that are being given and the wisdom of the crowds. Only in that situation you can bring about the collective intelligence of the group, not through the person who is able to scream the loudest. So this is what gives me a lot of hope. And the Habermas machine is another system. If you haven't heard about the Habermas machine, go seek it online. It's extraordinary. It's a similar system that is Habermas, a German philosopher, and his wisdom is behind this artificial intelligence system.
So,
there are solutions to the problems.
What about, the humanity of building relationships on the human level? And some people like Otto Scharmer and others are postulating that in the future, the most important thing we need to worry about is the relationships that we build between humans in order to not lose what it means to be human, right? And I fear that, yes, there are efforts going on to help the relationship building, but it doesn't replace it, does it?
Of course not.
And then how do we influence AI to actually enable us to have deeper human relationships, I guess is the question that I have.
I think, the AI I just described, CrowdSmart, enables people to get the feeling that they are contributing to the group, that they are being heard. That's the first step.
So for people who are not heard right now, that's an
they
elevation,
feel
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I have there's several people that are, and I'm using those of you who don't know me. I'm using the integral theory by Ken Wilber. This is the foundation of an integral. So understanding, appreciating, honoring the truth in all there is. That's the philosophy behind it. And this does not replace what you just mentioned, the indigenous. We all started in our DNA, we have our indigenous wisdom. This is why we have dinner. This is why we drink a glass of wine. This is why we celebrate Christmas. This is all part of our indigenous upbringing. And of course, now we're talking about quantum physics and so on. It evolved, we evolved, but we didn't throw it out. And we need to continue that. now even more than before, because AI helps us be wiser, I think AI helps us be more knowledgeable. The wisdom is still with us.
Here we go, wisdom.
And virtue, better people.
Yeah.
So I think AIs enable us to become better humans, if we want to take that
And I think that, that wisdom, that's a deeper wisdom on the humanity side, as opposed to the wisdom that just comes out of our brains, right? That's what it means to be human.
Which is what you just said before. You said, instead of listening to AI, I meditate, and then I download from wherever, the collective intelligence, wherever that coming from. Yeah.
And the indigenous people, my wife is, as you know, Hawaiian, and you know her, and they have a name for that. It's called kuleana. It's the responsibility that the Hawaiians have towards their land, the aina, and the society, right? But as in most indigenous societies, it goes both ways. It's a privilege for you to take on that role. And I think that is, we need to learn, in my opinion, again, as humans, to take responsibility and see it as a privilege that we can contribute with agency to the transformation that we are called to participate in. You mentioned the wisdom of crowds. I have to tell you, I'm really disappointed by the wisdom of crowds right now after the elections. What do you say?
I need to solve all the problems in the world.
Well, if AI counts on the wisdom of crowds, what do we get?
Well, I think that wisdom and virtue don't come without nothing, so you have to work at becoming a better human. It doesn't come.
Just by thinking about it, you can't.
You can't. And I think if you spend, it depends. I think such elections could represent, I'm not saying they do, but they could represent where people spend the most of their time. Do they spend it with other people to connect with other human beings, or are they allowing the social media to set their opinion? And I think if we throw truth and wisdom out of the window, this is what we receive. And I think we are at the beginning of understanding that we need to become the better humans. And I think those of us, and I've been sitting on a cushion for 45 years now, meditating and working on my personal development. And I'm just at the beginning, and I think this is a task that we all have to do, to really engage in one-to-one and in one-to-many conversations and learn from one another and learn to trust each other. Because, I grew up in communist Romania. I was 16 years old, and up until then, I went to school without food very often, really hungry. And I will never forget the song by Sting, "The Russians love their children too." And that really touched me deeply, because if you really get it to that level, then you begin to understand and open your heart to people who think differently, to have other values. And this is what those elections are now calling us to do. Because on a round planet, there is no choosing upsides. Where are you going to go if we fight each other that way? So where is the wisdom?
So I'm going to move us along. We have some deep comments here that we're not going to go deeper right now, but maybe in the conversation or in the Q&A session, the philosophical questions, not just the ethical questions. And so thanks for sharing a lot of the seeds for a deeper conversation. I want to get to the closing of our conversation in about 5 minutes at the latest. And I wanted to have a discussion about examples for positive impact right now. What can AI do right now? And maybe examples of negative impact that we need to be aware of. Like any technology, it can be used for, for applications that some of us might not agree with. And so let's start out with the challenges, and then end with the positive, with the impact usages of AI. So we talked about ethical challenges, philosophical challenges. Do you see any challenges in real-world applications as they're being rolled out right now? Like, I don't know, people talk about job loss and how to prepare for that. Very, very concrete things, that you have an opinion on.
Well,
And then we talk about the positive ones.
Yeah, well, this is an important question. I do have an opinion, but I'm a scientist and I look at the numbers always. Yeah. And so I think when it comes to jobs, yes, we will lose jobs, but technology is always done that. So the motto is AI or die. So those of us who haven't used and need a job, you better learn how to use AI to become more productive. It's just as simple as that. That's the motto. It's a technology. It's just like a knife. If you can cook a good meal with a knife, then you could kill a person with a knife. And AI, I'm not saying that is comparable, but it's a technology, right? So I think this is the most important thing. When it comes to jobs, well, as I look, and of course we will be losing jobs, and the numbers are different, depending who you're looking at. I just read a research that we're going to have a demographics problem, and by the end of the century, a big one. In that 2/3 of the world's population live in countries that have less than 2 children per couple. And so that you have big losses of working population right there. So that's what we need to prepare. So
that's if we survive 70 years.
I'm an optimist.
Thrive. Okay. Yeah.
And I'm in the Club of Rome for a reason. So, I really want to contribute to addressing the climate issues.
So AI or die. So I get this. But how do we not leave behind the people who don't have access to AI? Because
we don't, because they're getting access before they see. One of the biggest important, if you go to to less developed countries or developing countries, people would rather not eat than not buy a smartphone. And this is what I would have done, in Romania, if I could, rather. So, which means they leapfrog so much of the development that we have done, step by step, little by little, and they're already using AI to become entrepreneurs, to become tech entrepreneurs, even to start companies with very little resources. So those of who have awakened, and I'm teaching, you're teaching, all of us are doing, contributing to really educate people, to provide information and access and money. I mean, we're all impact investors, right? Then that's positive. So they're leapfrog, just like us, they don't have to have a fax machine, which we had to. So they're using a phone. They don't have a landline. They're using an iPhone. And so this is a positive impact on technology for the global South too.
If and only if I believe that the AI that they get served is actually privacy preserving and income generating for them. Would you agree with that?
Well, as a generalization, no. It's probably not true for everybody. How can it be? Education is not. I mean, look at education in Germany. It's terrible. The education is gone down the tubes. Look at the infrastructure in Germany. It's horrible. For the last 35 years, nothing has been done. We don't have to go to the global South to see how people have been left behind. So
where I wanted to go is I do understand that and agree with you on that. I just thought that the exploitation of the poorest of the poor continues also by AI, in my opinion.
It does.
And that we need to design different AI where the disadvantaged are enabled to monetize their digital footprint with their agency and not being driven by the AI. And that we're not there yet, but we need to demand that.
I agree, and this is why I'm a big. I mean, I just talked to the fiancée of my sons. She told me there are these knowledge AI workers in Africa who look at terrible, terrible videos and have to quantify them and qualify them, as good or bad. Imagine what this does to these people. And so they're the knowledge workers. I mean, what's happening right now, it's terrible. That's why I'm saying it's a yes and a no. It's not an easy answer.
No easy answers anymore. So I'm switching over to the chat in a second, but tell us a couple of examples of where AI makes a huge positive difference today.
Yes.
I have two too. I have many too, but
Good. Well, let me give you examples from the investment field, because I am extremely positively influenced by the amazing entrepreneurs that come along our way and are sharing their brilliant ideas. So one example is the application of quantum applications, quantum algorithms. And how they can be used to develop new medications. Keeple Quantum is an investment in a company that On-Site Ventures did, and we did, where they work with BASF to search using AI and quantum algorithms to search for new catalysts. Those of you who know the Haber-Bosch process, without which we wouldn't be here because we would have died, we wouldn't have had enough food, needs as catalyst iron. And so they're looking for alternative catalysts because it needs a lot of energy, in order to provide the future food for us on the planet. So this is a beautiful quantum application algorithm that Keeple Quantum does. So this is a positive thing. Another thing that I find extremely interesting, in terms of food, precision fermentation is another amazing alternative for proteins. So we don't have to kill animals to eat them like we're doing right now, and still feed the growing population of the planet. Another positive example, which about security. Security, particularly in this geopolitical situation, is extremely important. And as you might know, you mentioned China before. We didn't get around to continuing that conversation. Whenever a plane, a Western plane or a boat reaches the area of China, their GPS is distorted. And so they lose contact, they don't know where they are. So using quantum technology and quantum artificial intelligence, quantum combined with artificial intelligence, coming back to large quantitative models, we're using the magnetic field of the planet. We know the iron core, and each up to a square or square meter, I should say, of land has its own footprint. And we use that landscape in order to activate, with quantum technology, to activate electrons and identify where the plane is actually flying. And of course, you get a lot of data. And only artificial intelligence, speaking about application of positive application, only artificial intelligence algorithm can distinguish which data pertains to that particular field in order to create a new map so that we can still navigate these areas.
Now I need to go to these questions, so I want to go to these questions. One is, and I get to, there's about 7 or 8, and I'm going to summarize a couple of them. But one I want to just read here, and that's, what is it that we do not have already that AI can help us produce? Why do we need AI, really?
I just give you a bunch of examples. So
a bunch of examples?
Alternatives to GPS systems are being currently distorted. We cannot navigate the world. We cannot fly securely the world without GPS. And because they get spoofed and hijacked by our friends in close quotes, our security is at stake. And so this is what AI does. Another example that is also extremely important, when you check on from the medicine area, when you go, you need to do blood draw in order to analyze how your heart is doing and all the analysis and so on. and using quantum technology and AI that analyzes all the magnetic resonance information that comes from the physical body, you can come up with much, much better EKG and information without blood draw and much closer to the reality, the physical reality. So this is an extraordinary progress in medical.
And I think there's a couple of examples that I can throw in. One is also remote diagnosis.
Yes.
And there is a Schwab fellow that was awarded, with Hilde Schwab's Foundation on Social Entrepreneurism in Brazil. And they use remote diagnostics, very successfully in order to, with the back end, in order to help with the diagnosis that when there's no doctors around. Or another one of the Schwab fellows this year was doing individualized education to people that have an Android phone, and not much more, to your point, and they can customize and on the back end with the amount of data, with the amount of kind of learnings that they are individualized, right? Which without AI would not be possible. So there's a couple of examples.
And another example, energy. I mean, talking about climate change. Energy is another important
So
field.
there's a question
Future
here.
Energy.
We cannot fly securely because flying increases CO2 levels to a very dangerous level. How does AI solve that?
Well, if you follow the research that the Gates Foundation does and all the investment that go there, they are actually very close to identifying fuels that will be able to provide us with flying in the future without fossil fuels. So there is, I mean, it's a process. It's a process that, and of course, if you don't want to fly, you don't fly. But
and here's a couple more.
You cannot stop people from flying who want to fly.
From John Fullerton, our friend, how do we even begin to think about how to seriously contain AI into a commons that doesn't allow bad actors to exploit it for selfish, dangerous objectives, right? So even if we help, and we had some good examples of how we can help, how can we help avoid the bad actors taking advantage of this?
Yes, I asked this question. Yoshua Bengio, I mentioned him a couple of times in this conversation. I met him, I had dinner with him actually in Paris during the AI Action Summit. And Yoshua Bengio is one of the three fathers of AI, one of whom received the Physics Nobel Prize, Jeff Hinton. Yoshua Bengio is the second one, and Yann LeCun is the third. The French. And I asked him exactly the same question because as you probably most of you know, Jeff Hinton and they're all against, he left Google under protest, he didn't want to continue because he sees the dangers. And so what Yoshua Bengio told me was that you can only fight a bad AI with a good AI. And I said, okay, how do you do that? And he said, well, give me 100 million. I'm fundraising right now, and I'm working actually on it because he says we need a benevolent AI in order that is being trained in a different way. Remember the algorithm that I mentioned, that is in the inference machine inside the AI, and also with different data, different mindset, world-centric, cosmocentric rather than egocentric, tech bros mentality. And he also said, so John Fullerton helped me fundraise for Yoshua Bengio and Jeff Hinton and others. He said we would probably need about 3 to 5 such benevolent AIs. And we have a window of opportunity between 3 and 5 years to develop them with different. Of course, these people know what they're doing.
So it's good AI versus bad AI.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. When push comes to shove, that's it.
I developed an operating system in my past, and operating systems can be used by terrorists, and they can be used by angels, right? And I couldn't control who was who. In any case. So another one about the financial system here. Let me see if I can just quickly. So many of us, including many in the Club of Rome, believe that the fundamental design flaw of the economic system is exponential growth on a finitely resourced planet. Can AI help, hinder? Because we need to solve this problem in order to thrive in the future.
Yes.
So what can AI do to actually help us transform the financial system, the economic system, from one of perceived perpetual exponential growth, which is not feasible, to one that goes in a different direction, including degrowth potentially, and different scaling of our enterprises and how we deal with nature.
Yes, and that person who responds and gives an answer to this question is going to get the Nobel Prize in economics.
But some ideas. Yeah.
Yes. Let's work together on this. I don't
Let's work together on this.
But I think it's not an easy answer because the issues are here, and what we're currently moving toward is you just mentioned is the Yanis Varoufakis called the techno-feudalism or techno-feudal economics.
So we get some good comments on, fighting the bad guys with good guys. And sounds like the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is with a good guy with a gun. I want to comment on that myself, and then I hand it over to you. Like you, I've explored my inner transformation, not just with my brain, but with my soul and doing the hard work. But the fact remains that people who meditate can use the benefits of meditation to become a better sharpshooter, and it works. And I think I would say the same is true for AI. So meditation, mindfulness practices, and maybe AI, that's the question to you. I'm answering for how we change ourselves, and doing that without ethics, without compassion, I think leads to disasters as well. And so that brings me to the topic of May. What has our consciousness individually and together to do with answering that question?
That's exactly what's not going to happen with AIs. AIs may end up in our heads, may end up helping us, becoming cognitively better, behaving maybe better, but we are not the physical body. There is one amazing philosopher, actually, the guy who invented the MOS technology, MOS computers. His name is Federico Fagin, who has been working on AI forever, and he was trying to take, take an awakening moment and represent it onto a computer. And 30 years later, he decided it's not possible because you cannot represent consciousness in a 0 or a 1 on a computer. And whether you have a quantum computer, we are quantum. How should I say, feelings, spirituality, the smell of a rose, the taste of a garlic, love.
Compassion, empathy.
Exactly. They cannot be represented in a physical way.
Okay,
and this is what makes us humans.
So here's one more question that we've explored a little bit, but just to give space for that. AI builds on historical data. How do we avoid that civilization grinds to a halt because AI only knows and reproduces the past and does so at an immensely higher speed than human cognition, which means it will overrule us?
If we're dumb, it will. But I don't think we're not dumb. And I think even if the majority of people, may suffer, and we do suffer as we speak, otherwise we wouldn't be here to find answers. But we evolve, and there is evolution. There's an evolution of the heart. There's an evolution of the human soul, evolution of physics, of everything that we have ever created. We are not the physical world. And we will evolve. And I don't know, the person, and there are many philosophers who've talked about this and reflected about this. We don't know where we're coming from, and we don't know where we're going after we die, and we don't even know what we're doing when we sleep, in deep sleep. So while we still not have the answers, it's going to be an enigma.
So thank you, everybody online, for your questions and for listening in, and thank you to everybody else. I'm going to make my last statement, and then I ask you to make your last statement to the online community, and then we'll conclude the online session. And my statement is that I fundamentally believe that the impact of my life is a direct expression of my consciousness, of who I really am, not who I think I am, not what I feel I am, but who I really am. And that's why I think it's so important to work on our own inner landscape. And similarly, I believe that the trajectory of humanity is a direct expression of humanity's consciousness. And so, therefore, I dedicate the rest of my life to elevating that consciousness, by doing things like this and questioning, the technology just for technology's sake. And you made the same statements over and over again today, that technology is in support of helping the consciousness to evolve. And I think I want to leave it like this and ask you for your last statement for our audience and then conclude.
My last statement is one word: love.
Well, we leave it at that. Thank you so much, Mariana.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye.